So in this video we'll discuss the suggested phonics teaching order. This information comes from list 16 of Kress and Fry, the Reading Teacher's Book of Lists, 6th edition. So the first thing to consider is, why do the authors suggest this particular order? This order is based on the frequency of the phoneme graphing pairings in common texts that students will see. And this combines and balances the use of consonants and vowels for use in the classroom, since we need both in order to decode words. If we taught all consonants first and then all vowels, or vice versa, it would be a little while before students actually had all of the phoneme grapheme correspondences they needed to decode full words. The order that we're going to go over is pretty typical for most reading programs. There may be slight variations, but particularly the very beginning steps, you're going to see in this order pretty much universally. So where do we start? Well, first we start with easy consonants. These are consonants that are very high frequency and that have clearly different phonemes from one another, so they're not going to be easily confused. So this includes the letters T, N, R, M, D, S, the S sound, L, C, the hard C sound as in cat, P, B, F, and V. Once students have learned these easy consonants, then we add short vowel sounds. So the A as in cat, E as in pet, I as in hit, A as in pot, and as in cut. Once students have these short vowel sounds combined with the previously learned consonant sounds, they can decode a great number of the words that are used in early reading materials, as you can see in the words that I've used in examples here. Once students have mastered those consonants and short vowels, then we can add the magic E. The magic E, when added to the end of a consonant, vowel, consonant, single syllable word, makes the vowel say its name. So this is students' first exposure to long vowel sounds with a very predictable pattern, the use of that magic E. So we take Mac, M-A-K, which isn't actually a word, and add an E, and we have make, which is a word that students are going to be pretty familiar with. Nine from nin, bone from bon, and so on. The next suggested step is those long vowels that follow the open syllable rule. Remember that the open syllable is when a syllable ends with a long vowel sound. And so this is going to be words like me and no, which are pretty common. These also build on, you'll note, those consonants that students learned first. So other consonants such as G haven't been introduced yet, and that's why you won't see words like go put on this list yet. Now is when we introduce those other consonants. So the first sound of G, that hard sound for get, letters H, K, W, J, X, which, if you remember, makes two sounds together, typically the X as in box, the letter Y as in yes, so when it's being used as a consonant, and the letter Z as in zip. At this point, students now know the single consonants and their most common sounds, so we can start adding some combinations. And the first combinations we're going to add are these initial consonant digraphs, such as the TH, as in thin or these. And you'll note that the sound is a little different in those. Say them to yourself: thin, these. So slightly different pronunciation of that TH grapheme. Then we also have the CH as in chin, the SH as in shop, and the WH as in when or where. And these are fairly frequently used consonant digraphs that students will see in their reading. The next suggested step is adding another vowel, which is the grapheme Y, representing the long I sound, as in my, or the long E sound, as in funny. So at this point, we're taking phonemes that students know and showing the students that these phonemes can be represented by different graphemes. So we're making sure students are confident in the first grapheme phoneme correspondence we've taught them for a particular phoneme, and then we add in that extra information that there are multiple ways to do some of these phonemes. Which takes us to second sounds for our consonant letters. So again, we're showing students that a single phoneme can be represented in multiple graphemes. So the C in city, the soft C, which should be represented by an S between the slashes, not a C, my apologies. S, which can sound like a Z, such as in words like his. The soft G sound, which makes the J, as in Jim. And X, which can represent a different pair of phonemes instead of the K, S they usually represent. In words like exam, we have a G, Z. So a kind of a GZ is the typical graphemes that would represent that phoneme, but in this case, they're combined into an X. Note that up to this point, we've focused on vowel sounds that are represented by single graphemes. And at this point, we're going to start bringing in those digraphs in which multiple graphemes come together to represent a single vowel sound, such as AI making the long A sound in bait or wait, or the OA graphemes working together to represent the long O sound in boat and goat. We're also going to bring in some initial consonant blends. So these consonant letters that work together, they keep their sounds, but they are partners in crime, so to speak, such as BR or SW or TW. So twig, drive, stop at the beginning. And it's important that students remember that these are still separate phonemes, but those graphemes tend to pair together pretty frequently, which is why we put them together in this list of blends. And then there are different consonant blends that we typically only see at the end of words, such as LD in old, or the MP in bump. Up to this point, we've been focusing just on long and short vowel sounds, but at this point, students should be comfortable with those, and so we're going to bring in the idea that adding an R makes the vowels sound a little differently. So in our first column here, we have our R-controlled single vowels, such as the AR in car, or the sound, which can be represented by ER, IR, or UR, her, fur, and fur, or the OR, the OR sound. And then we also have some that are represented by these other combinations that are in the right hand. So air, R, as in bear, ear, as in fear, and the EER as in beer. You'll note that these aren't exactly your long or your short vowels. They're again changed, modified by the addition of that R. And then there's the broad O vowels, the vowels that make that aw sound. So awful, auto, also, off. All sound kind of aw. And that's called the broad O. And that's because of the shape of your mouth when you make that sound. Makes that O sound with your lips and mouth. Diphthongs is next on the teaching order. You'll note that this is far down the list because these tend to be very confusing. Students can struggle with these because of this idea that now all of a sudden we can have multiple vowel sounds in a single syllable. And they work together very closely, such as the owl in owl or out, or the oi in oil and toy. And the way to identify, easiest way to identify if a word contains a diphthong is to pay attention to the drop of your chin versus the movement of your lips. If your chin doesn't drop to make that new syllable, but your lips change shape to make that new vowel sound, then you probably have a diphthong there. Double O vowels are next on the list. We have short and long double O vowels that can be represented either by a double O grapheme or by the grapheme U. So for long we have pool and truth, and these long O's will make your lips pucker more, as opposed to foot and push, where your lips will open more as opposed to puckering. Finally, at this point, we get to the schwa. And the schwa can be represented by any vowel grapheme in a word. So it can be A, E, I, O, or U in writing. But when we're looking at the schwa as a phoneme, it's represented by the symbol that is an upside down E. And the schwa makes that sound, so about, Alaska, circus, and it's in an unaccented syllable. So the unaccented syllable is a syllable that doesn't get the emphasis. So in the word about, bout gets the emphasis. Then it gets the schwa. Alaska is 3-syllable, and the ask in the middle gets the accent, so Alaska. So actually you have in that one a schwa at the beginning and at the end. And then circus, the emphasis is on the sir, and cuss, gets that schwa. Next we get into silent letters, those letters that are there but don't actually make a sound, like the G in new, the K in new, or the W in wrong. And then we get into those other vowel spellings that we see pretty frequently in upper level texts, but really don't fit with any of the previous rules, such as the aw sound in ought, which is spelled that O-U-G-H, or the I, the long I sound, which is spelled with an I-G-H as in light or fight. So hopefully this has helped to introduce this to you. Make sure you come to class with any questions you have about this phonics teaching sequence, and be prepared to utilize and discuss this information in class. Thanks as always for watching.